Hello my friends, welcome to my review of the Urban Decay Naked Heat palette. This is probably one of the most requested videos I've gotten recently. I'm about to leave for vacation in a couple of days. I just got this palette yesterday, but I wanted to get it to you because I know that y'all want to know the truth about this palette and I'm about to give it to you. If you've never been to one of my review videos before, they are quite long. You can feel free to skip ahead to your favorite parts in the description down below. First, we're going to talk about what you get, where you can get it, how much it is, the value of it. We'll go a little bit into the ingredients in the product, and then we'll do swatches, demo, and then I will give you my full review. So let's go ahead and talk about what this palette is. So the Naked Heat palette is the exact same setup as the other Naked palettes. You get 12 rectangular shape shadows, you get this large mirror here, and you also get a double-sided brush. None of that is new to the Naked range. You'll notice, just like the other Naked palettes, they're set up from light to dark-ish. Usually that's the way they set things up. Along with the eyeshadow palette in this collection, they do have lipsticks and liners, but I didn't want to spend all of that, to be completely honest. And speaking of spending on this, I do want to thank the folks over in the Super Chat. After I posted on Instagram about this, that I bought this myself, I realized I remembered I was going to use Super Chat money for this. So thank you so much to those of you in Super Chat who allowed me to purchase this because I am way over budget for June, like way over. These names right here are the people that purchased this palette for me. So thank you so much for your donation. Super Chat will be enabled probably again in the fall. I'm going to quote Urban Decay on this. It says, "This is the most shade-driven Naked palette Urban Decay has ever created," and I completely agree with that. The shades in this are very monochromatic. You've got red and red and red and red and lots of red. There's just red everywhere. I really truly believe in my heart this palette could not have come out 2 or 3 years ago before the worm trend hit. People would have looked at this and been like, oh my gosh, it's gonna make my eyes look bloody. But because warm is so on trend, I don't think people are really looking at it as bloody anymore. They're just looking at it as very, very warm. Of course, we do have a couple shades that aren't red. We've got these 4 over here. We've got one that leans a little bit purple here, but overall, we're dealing with red here. There are 7 matte shades in here and 5 shimmer shades. Here is a shimmer, then we've got matte, 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 shimmer, matte, shimmer, shimmer, matte, 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 shimmer over here. I was lucky enough to get this on the Urban Decay website when they had a very, very short time pre-sale. I do believe this palette is going to be permanent. They haven't talked about it being limited edition in any way, and all the rest of the Naked palettes are permanent to their line, so I would expect this one to be as well. The release date for this palette is June 30th on Urban Decay's website, and then at Sephora and Ulta online on July 10th, and then in stores on July 13th. I'm assuming it'll also be available other places that Urban Decay is sold. Now we're going to talk about how this product was made. So it is bulk made in the United States with US and or imported ingredients. Now that is a problem for Lorac in that Lorac cannot guarantee the suppliers of their suppliers that they are cruelty-free, but Urban Decay says this: Urban Decay is a cruelty-free brand and is committed to ending animal testing. We do not test our products on animals, nor do we allow others to test on our behalf. Additionally, we require our suppliers to certify that the raw materials used and the manufacture of our products are not tested on animals. Our brand is certified by PETA as cruelty-free. So far we're good on the cruelty-free lane until we hit the fact that they are owned by L'Oreal, which is not a cruelty-free company. So depending on how far you take your cruelty-freeness, you may say this is a cruelty-free product, you may not, because the money eventually trickles up to L'Oreal, who is not cruelty-free. So it's up to you what you want to say about that. As far as value, there's a little weirdness on the box that I think is a misprint. Each pan is supposed to be 1.3 grams, but also 0.05 ounces. But if you calculate 0.05 ounces, it's actually 1.41 grams. The rest of the Naked palettes are 1.41 grams, so I'm assuming that the 1.3 grams is a misprint. I know that's a bunch of numbers just thrown out at you, but basically it says that it's got less in it when I personally think it was just a misprint and it has a little bit more. So we're gonna go with the 1.41 grams because that's the same as the rest of the Naked palettes. So that makes this palette at a $54 palette. It makes it $3.19 per gram. Am I crazy, or did Naked palettes used to be $50 and then they were $52 and now they're $54? That's what my memory serves me. Correct me if I'm wrong, or please validate me if you think I'm right. I think the prices are going up a little bit. With value, these are more expensive than Tarte and Too Faced, but they are less expensive than Lorac and Anastasia. They kind of fall in the middle of the range of their price points of similar brands. Now, just a little bit about ingredients. The first ingredient is talc, so if you don't like that, you don't want this. The second ingredient is something that's actually a really good skincare ingredient. I don't know how much it counts for a powder product, but it's called caprylic and capric triglyceride. It's a skin balancing ingredient, so I don't know how that affects the shadows, but it is known to be a good ingredient. There are no parabens in this product. It does use phenoxyethanol, which some people are sensitive to. They do have that long list of pigments, and some of them are not lip safe, including ultramarines, ferric ferrocyanides, chromium oxide greens, and chromium hydroxide greens. If you want to know which ones you could tap into the center of your lip for a little bit of highlight, you're gonna have to contact Urban Decay directly to find out which ones of these shadows do not contain those ingredients. One thing that I was really shocked about is that there's no carmine in this product. Carmine is made from crushed beetles, so that makes products not vegan. It is a red pigment that is used all the time in red lipsticks and red eyeshadows and red makeup in general, and I was shocked not to find carmine. So I have some messages into Urban Decay. I don't have a direct contact at Urban Decay, so I've put in some social media requests to find out if this palette is in fact vegan. It seems to be vegan, which would be great for the vegans out there. There's also no ethylhexyl palmitate. I know some of the people who watch my videos don't use palm oil because of environmental reasons, so there's no ethylhexyl palmitate in this, which is also a really good thing. So now it's time to get into the swatches. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you those right now.
Nightmares creep while you and me repeat. This bittersweet heat is suffocating. I'm waiting and always hesitating. Kryptonite desires set my heart afire. Heart on fire. Set my heart afire. Suffocating. I'm waiting and always hesitating. Kryptonite desires set my heart afire. Heart on fire. Set my heart afire.
hope you found those swatches helpful. Let's go ahead and get into the demo of how I got this look today. I've been getting some critiques lately that I do the same look over and over. I never step out of my comfort zone. So today we stepped out of the box a little bit. I figured this Naked Heat palette was a good way to step out of the box. I also, you'll see a very fun surprise. Well, it's not going to be a surprise because I'm about to tell you. I also used the shadow as all of my cheek products today actually came from the Naked Heat palette. So you'll see how I use those. So I'm going to go ahead and show you that now. All right, so let's get this party started with some Urban Decay Primer Potion in Eden. This is one that I really like because it mutes out some of the discoloration in my lids. It's not quite as much as NYX's Pencil and Milk, but it's enough. You can see that there is some coverage there. We're gonna go ahead into a transition with the shade Sauce, and I found that this has a lot of pigmentation, so you really don't need a lot on your brush in order to get that color on your skin, at least for my skin tone. I'm gonna try my hardest only to use the brush that came with the palette, but I am gonna dip into some other brushes later just because I felt like I really needed to. Let's go into Dirty Talk. I'm just bringing that right above the transition. And I'm just kind of winging it out a little bit, kind of making that triangle shape on the outer corner and bringing it in a little further than I normally do just to make it a little more dramatic. We're gonna go into Ashes now, which is a matte, like reddish purple shade, and bring that into the crease. This is not a cut crease, but it's about as close as I get to a cut crease. And I'm just bringing that over all the way over my lid and then winging it out just a little bit on the outer corner. And then back into Chaser. This is just to blend out the brow bone. This shade is not very pigmented at all. So really this is pretty much, for me, just as good as a clean brush. Now this shade Lumber is the one that I had the most hope for. It is absolutely beautiful in a swatch, but on the lid, it's not as punchy as I had hoped. Now with Scorched on the outer corner, you'll see that there really isn't a whole lot of difference between Lumber and Scorched on the lid. They kind of muddy together a bit. Now Ounce is a nice, very subtle highlight color. There is some pigmentation to it, but it is definitely not a super poppy light color for the inner corner. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put some Fix Plus to show you the difference of when you spray and wet the brush in order to apply the shadows, and you'll see it definitely pops a little more. I'm just taking a clean fluffy brush to blend what I've done so far. Kind of looks okay. I like my looks really poppy and it just wasn't giving it to me. So let's go back into Lumber and you'll see there's a huge difference between a wet brush and the dry brush. And then back into Scorch, trying to brighten that up, and you can see that one pops quite a bit more as well. But I'm still not super impressed with the way the shadows are working. So that is the end of the basic eye look, and this is the look with lashes and liner and lipstick. The lip I'm wearing here, by the way, is F-Bomb, and I've got some Pat McGrath gold in the center. As I was looking at the palette, I was like, oh, I wonder if I could use this for my cheeks too. So I'm using He Devil as a blush, and as you can see, you only need the tiniest little bit, and it actually works better on the second cheek because I had already gotten off a lot of the product on my right cheek. It just takes a little bit of work, but it works out. And then into Low Blow, I was gonna try to use that as a contour, but I don't know if it really works as a contour. It was just more fun for this look. It kind of works. I guess it'll depend on your skin tone whether this will work for you or not. And then now I'm rubbing into Ounce as my highlight, and I actually really like this as a highlighter. I like it better as a highlighter than I do as an eyeshadow. It just gives a really nice glow to the cheeks. It's very, very pretty. So this is the finished look on fire, and you know, just a little posing and fluffing because that's what the beauty gurus do. So I figured I'd fluff and pose because that's the thing to do apparently. And overall, I like the look. It's definitely not my favorite look on me personally, but I think it came out pretty good. I'm happy with it. Now you have seen how these perform, maybe made some judgments based on the swatches in the demo of what you think about this palette. As I was editing this video, I kind of had a brainstorm of an idea. I saw that Cora from Vintage or Tacky did a little bit of comparisons between different palettes, so I'm going to go ahead and do that for you with a few palettes. The first one we're going to compare is the Anastasia Modern Renaissance palette. There really isn't a ton of similarities between these, but I do want to compare some of the shades. I also want to show you the Colored Rain Queen of Hearts palette. This palette is coming back, I think in the fall, late summer, early fall, and it's a very, very popular palette among people that like very pigmented, poppy looks. So I want to do a comparison there. And then also the Violet Voss Holy Grail palette. There are actually a lot of similarities between the Naked Heat and the Violet Voss Holy Grail palette. I'll show you those in just a moment. And finally, there are some comparison shades with the Naked Heat and the Tartist Pro palette. So let's go ahead and get into those. We're just gonna go from left to right on the Naked Heat palette, starting off with Ounce. We're gonna go ahead and compare that to Tempera from the ABH Modern Renaissance palette, as well as Vermeer from the Anastasia palette, and then Crystal from Violet Voss. I wanted to do both Tempera and Vermeer because Tempera is a matte and Vermeer is a shimmer, and Ounce is a shimmer. So just wanted to kind of give you a comparison that if you mix those, you'll probably get the same shade. As you can see, the shimmer is quite a bit weaker on the Urban Decay palette than it is on the Anastasia palette. So if you like a weaker shimmer, you're gonna go for Urban Decay. If not, you're gonna wanna get either the Anastasia or the Violet Voss. And I'm gonna go ahead and do the wipe test for these because I want to show you what would happen if you would overblend them, or if it'll give you a hint to lasting power. As is typical for light shades, they all disappear, except for you really can still see just a little bit of crystal left. We're gonna go ahead and move on to the second shade, which is Chaser, which is my least favorite shade in the Urban Decay palette. And we're gonna compare that to Air from Colored Rain, Bestie from Violet Voss, and Bold from Tarte. Of course, they're not exact dupes, but you can kind of get the sense of the pigmentation. You can see the Urban Decay is definitely the weakest in pigmentation, and Air from Colored Rain is definitely the strongest, but you can get similar looks out of these shades. And with the wipe test for these, you'll see that the Urban Decay one is pretty much gone, where the other three hang in there pretty well. The third shade is Sauced, and we'll compare that to Burnt Orange from Anastasia, Royal Prerogative from Colored Rain, and Are You Kidding Me from Violet Voss. And they're pretty much all exactly the same. There's very small variations between these, but they're all pretty much the same shade. They're all very good quality too. I like all these shades. Do you need all four? No. And with the wipe test, you'll see they all fade away to look almost pretty much the same. The undertones are the same, and you can see there's a little bit of variation where Anastasia and Colored Rain hang out a little bit tougher than the other two, but they're all pretty much the same. The fourth shade is called Low Blow, and we're going to compare that to Raw Sienna by Anastasia, Royal Prerogative by Colored Rain, and Are You Kidding Me by Violet Voss. That is Royal Prerogative and Are You Kidding Me are coming back from the last swatch, because there really isn't a whole lot of difference between Sauced and Low Blow if you really look at them. I mean, there is a slight difference, but on the eye, there really isn't a lot of difference between the two, which is one of my big problems with this palette. If you compare those two shades and Raw Sienna from Anastasia, there's still not too much variation in the shades. And the wipe test shows that all the undertones are pretty much the same once again. This shade I thought was going to be the hardest to dupe, and it really was very difficult. This is Lumber. It's a beautiful pinkish shift on this red tone, and really there's no dupe for this, but I did want to put them next to How You Doin' by Violet Voss and On Fleek by Violet Voss, but really they're not the same. Urban Decay's is definitely pinker. And in the wipe test, they all hang out there pretty well, not as well as some of the matte shades, but pretty well. This is one of my favorite shades. This is called He Devil, but as you're gonna see, it's dupeable. Red Ochre from Anastasia Beverly Hills and Whimsy by Tarte are very similar. Whimsy is a little bit more on the orange side, but they're pretty much the same. As we wipe these away, you'll see even more how Whimsy is just a little bit more orange, but again, lasting power is fantastic. This is another one I thought was going to be difficult to dupe. This is Dirty Talk, and I'm going to compare this to On Fleek by Violet Voss. They are very, very similar, but I couldn't find any other dupes in these palettes. Wiping them away, Violet Voss definitely seems to hang on a little bit tougher, but it looks like the Urban Decay would probably be more blendable. Scorched is almost the exact same shade as Dirty Talk, so we're going to compare that to On Fleek and Cranberry Splash from Violet Voss, just so you can see the differences and similarities. They are different. I feel like that Cranberry Splash is a little bit closer, but they are different. I don't think that there is a dupe for Scorched in any of these palettes. When we wipe them away, we'll notice that Cranberry Splash definitely stays on the best, but they all have pretty good lasting power. Just a few more left. Cayenne here. We're going to compare that to Anastasia's Realgar, or I'm not sure how you pronounce that, and Tarte's Whimsy. Cayenne is a little bit lighter. I'm going to go ahead and double swatch that one just so you can get the true color, but I feel like it compares the best to Whimsy. You can see the undertone here is pretty good as far as the Whimsy and Cayenne dupe. I feel like that's a pretty close dupe. I don't think Realgar, it really is a dupe, but you can see the similarities between them. And Fuego, I love that name. And Fuego, we're gonna compare that to Red Ochre from Anastasia. We're bringing that one back. Duchess from Colored Rain and Teddy Bear from Violet Voss. And as you can see, Duchess and Teddy Bear really are a lot more brown, but I really wanted to see if I could find more dupes for the shade, and obviously there's a fail there. But I feel like in Fuego and Red Ochre really are pretty close. And Fuego has that little bit of brown in it that I was hoping to be able to find in Duchess and Teddy Bear, but I didn't. So I feel like that one is another one that there really is no true dupe in this palette, but definitely the closest is Red Ochre from Anastasia. These all last really, really well. I feel like the Anastasia Red Ochre is definitely the strongest as far as lasting power, but they all last really well. Two left. Ashes here. Ashes is the one that I really like a lot. I'm going to compare that to Cypress Umber from Anastasia, Teddy Bear from Violet Voss, and Smoked from Tarte. And Ashes definitely has that purpley reddish undertone to it that I feel like is the closest in Teddy Bear from Violet Voss, and I actually like Ashes better than that shade. And as we wipe them away, we'll notice Anastasia and the Tarte definitely last the best, but they aren't the same shade, so you can't really compare them completely. But again, great lasting power on these deeper shades. I do want to show you one more comparison of Ashes and Drama by Tarte. And you can just see the pigmentation difference is just insane. Drama is insanely more pigmented and opaque than Ashes is. The undertones are a bit different here, but personally I would definitely choose Drama over Ashes here. And finally, we get to another shade that I absolutely love. It's Ember. I thought I was going to have a hard time duping this one, but it really wasn't that hard in these palettes. We got Dethroned from Colored Rain, Bat My Eyes from Violet Voss, and Minx from Tarte. I feel like Minx from Tarte, surprisingly, is very close to this one, but I think they're all pretty close. I think you could do the exact same look with any of these. I think Dethroned is probably the least close, but I mean, there's definitely similarities between all these shades. If you own any of these palettes, I don't think you need Ember in your life. These actually didn't last as well as I thought they would, and if you look at Ember from Urban Decay, it's got kind of a black undertone that none of the other shades have, which is kind of odd because I wouldn't have expected that black undertone. So as it fades on your eye through the day, expect it to become smokier, and that's why I really like the wipe test, is so that you could see things like that. But I do think Ember is a unique shade to these in that black undertone, but on the eye during application, it's gonna look pretty much the same as the others. Now let me tell you what I think based on my limited 2-day experience with this palette. I wish I could spend more time with it, but you either get it now or you get it in 3 weeks, and I didn't want it to be in 3 weeks. So yeah, I kind of already talked to you a little bit about it in the demo, how I feel about some of these shades. I really don't like these first 2 shades at all. They're very weak. You can wet them like you saw in the demo and kind of beef up this shade Ounce over here. You can kind of make it a little shimmery, but I feel like there's so many shimmery champagne colors out there that just kick this one's butt. Now when it comes to Sauced and Low Blow, I do really like those shades a lot. I feel like they're very nice. I feel like they're very pigmented. I feel like they go on very easily. I love Low Blow as the transition, like you saw in the demo, works really well. I found that Sauced was a little too light for a transition for me, but if you are fairer than me, then Sauced might be a good transition for you. If you're deeper than me, you may be able to play with some of these other matte shades. The matte shades in here perform beautifully except for Chaser. They all perform very, very well, so you could probably rock one of those up in your crease as a transition. A big issue I have with the shade selection here is we've got 6 shades in here that really aren't that different in tone, especially these 5 right here. I think we start with Enfuego, you start getting a little bit deeper and you've got some variation, but on the lid, these all kind of muddy together for me. There's no real separation of color, especially when we're talking Dirty Talk and Scorched. There's just really no separation, and as you saw with the Lumber and Scorch, there really wasn't enough difference so that you could see on my eye that Scorched was a bit deeper. It is slightly deeper, but I was very disappointed in Lumber. When you finger swatch Lumber just on your finger, it looks gorgeous. It's got a beautiful shift to it, but you really need some kind of Fix Plus or water or something to beef up the pigmentation of this, and you saw that in the demo when I used the Fix Plus. You can use water, a spray bottle with water. I remember watching Jackie Ina do her video with this, and she's putting it on, I'm like, man, look at that pigmentation, that's so great. And then she's like, oh, by the way, I used Fix Plus. And it's like, oh, well, that's why it looks so great. I'm glad she said it, but it was kind of as an afterthought, and I was sitting there really impressed, and then I realized, then she said she'd used Fix Plus, and I was like, oh, wah, 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 because I was hoping it was performing that way on its own, because now there are all these foiled shadows that are so much better than these that it's just like, I feel like they could have done better on Lumber. It's kind of disappointing for me. These 3 matte shades are fabulous. They're wonderful. I have no complaints about those, and Ember is absolutely gorgeous. If you have a deep skin tone, I can just imagine Ember looking gorgeous just all over the lid because it's got that beautiful shift to it. It's just really gorgeous. It's a little too smoky for me. It's a little too intense. I don't know if I'll be doing that, but I can see if you do like that, looking really, really good on the lid. I put this on late last night, so I can't really speak to lasting power, and I just put it on just now, so I can't speak to lasting power. I will put any updates as I use this to lasting power down in the description below. Based on the swatches and the wipe test, I would imagine these are going to last really, really nicely on the lid. I did wear them for about 4 hours last night. They did last pretty well for those 4 hours, but I don't think that's enough for me to give you like a full verdict on lasting power. So the last question I like to leave you with is, who is this palette good for? Okay, this is what I want you to do. I want you to seriously go into your soul right now. I want you to sit, and I want you to think. If you're contemplating this palette, I want you to think for a second. Have you ever worn a red eyeshadow in your life? Okay, if you answered, okay. If the answer is no, do you have any desire to wear a red eyeshadow? Do you think you're gonna wear red on your eyes? If the answer is no, do not buy this palette. Do not give in to the gorgeous packaging. Do not give in to the consumerism. Thank you, Kimberly Clark. Do not give in to this palette. Do not buy it. It is not worth it. If you want a warm palette, there are so many warm palettes coming out. I don't think that this is gonna be for you. Now, but if you answered yes to either of those questions, in that you love red eyeshadow, you wear it all the time, or you're really interested in trying it, then maybe this one might be for you. My biggest thing about this is I wish they hadn't gone so monochromatic. I wish instead of these 6 shades being so stinking similar, why didn't you give me a gold? Give me a gold, give me an orange, and then I would have been so happy, because that would have opened up an entire realm of possibilities. Can you imagine a gold with like these shades over here? Oh my gosh, a halo eye with that? But a good thing about that is nobody says you gotta stick to these shades. You can grab your favorite gold foiled eyeshadow and use it with this palette. So if you have shadows like that, don't be afraid to pull those into this so it's not so monochromatic, and you can really get a cool flame look. So is this palette a must-have? Absolutely not. Is this going to be right for you? You really have to think about your answer to those 2 questions that I asked you earlier, and that'll kind of help you decide. It's definitely not my favorite palette by any means, but I can see why some people would really, really love it. It's one personally I'm probably not going to reach for much. When I think in my head, ooh, I wish I had a really nice red shade, I will probably reach for this palette, but that'll probably be the only time I reach for this palette. So that is it for my Urban Decay Naked Heat palette review. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, definitely hit that subscribe button. If you hit the little circular face that's below me right now, that'll help you to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future content. And speaking of other content, if you'd like enough to watch another one of my review videos, you can click the video link that's down below as well. Thank you so much for watching. Mad love, and I'll see you in a video soon.